And it is where all these coincidences and synchronicities start to fall into place. In Bill's book 45, he references Carl Jung. In it, he says, Carl Jung had a dream, and the dream went like this. He found himself in a dirty, sooty city. It was night and winter, dark and raining. He was in Liverpool. He was with a bunch of mates walking up through these dark streets, up from the docks, heading for the town. The bright lights, Lime Street, Young and his mates found themselves in this small cobbled square. A number of daily lit streets converged on this square, and in the centre of the square was a small pool, and at the centre of the pool is an island. Like I said, it was a shit night, rain, fog, smoke, and just the odd gas lamp. But that small island was bathed in sunlight. On the island, a lone tree was growing, one of those sorts people have in their gardens with tulip-like flowers, but he knew his mates couldn't see the tree or even the pool. One of them remembered somebody who had moved to Liverpool from Switzerland, and now they'd seen this place, he couldn't work out why anybody would want to move here. But Young and his team thought, I know why, and then he woke. And Young interpreted the dream just like Joseph did for the Pharaoh, because that's what he did for a living. Young reckoned the dream represented his life at the time, drab and dreary, unclear and unpleasant. Everything in it was shit, going nowhere, but the tree in the sunlight was like a vision of almost unearthly beauty. It was in that vision that kept him alive, well, not literally. From here he reckoned that Liverpool be the pool of life, according to the Liver, is the sea of life. If he had ever visited Liverpool in reality, he might have thought differently. The dream was a turning point in Young's life, a watershed. The goal had been revealed. Through this dream, he understood that within yourself is all meaning, and something about an archetype being found there. And it is from here that I bring it to Alan Moore. Quoting from John Higgs's book, to understand his take on the burning, talking about when they burnt the £1,000,000, we first need to grasp what Moore means by the slippery word magic. What is the imagination? Is it the creation of original thought from our own consciousness? But then what is thought and what is consciousness? Moore understands that while we assume we live firmly in the real physical world, in actuality we live in a mental world of our own making. This model is produced by our own minds, based on memories and information from the senses. It is a very detailed and convincing model, so much so it is very difficult to accept how unreal it is. Moore set out to build a model of the world which Moore calls idea space. As this space, part of the name implies, he chose the spatial metaphor. This seemed reasonable, he thought, for we naturally talk of ideas being at the back of our minds or at the forefront of our thinking. We can be deep or high-minded. Ideas then were placed in a space in this model. The ideas could be big or small, or most detailed and complicated ideas such as religions, ideologies, or Robert Anton Wilson's self-referential reality tunnels might make up entire continents of idea space. So far, so uncontroversial, but where this becomes interesting is where we consider our own relationship to that world. Moore thought that we each had our own little corner of idea space, our own home in the mental land. Something personal like Drummond's idea of echo would live in Drummond's section of idea space. Many ideas, however, are shared, and while we may have our own personal version of them, they are more usefully said to exist in the communal space. Concepts such as Madonna, Sherlock Holmes, or Hitler, for example, are shared by almost everybody. For Moore, these communal ideas existed beyond our own personal corners of the mental world. Could we then wander out of our little territories, go further afield, and explore the rest of idea space? Here Moore's model is describing something very similar to Carl Jung's collective unconscious. Moore thought that yes, we could open doors of our individual homes and walk out into the landscape beyond. Indeed, he thought that artists had to go for it. It was their job to wander furthest from their own path and imagination and return to the truly rare and exotic ideas which they had to use and make something out of. In this way of the world we live in becomes increasingly changed by the mental world. If this process, the way thoughts exist and alter the world that Moore uses the word magic to describe, what Moore had done was to raise the importance of the mental world of imagination and lower that of the physical. Indeed, you could argue that he had reversed them, claiming more importance for the imagination than the physical, to the extent where the physical world is the product of the mental. This approach, in which the material is dependent on events and the immaterial echoes, Charles Four's belief that a tree cannot find out, as it were, how to blossom until it becomes blossom time. A social growth cannot find out the use of steam engines until it comes steam engines time. This is the phenomenon of why other millennia inventions, such as the electric light, Celsius, steam engines, not existing, and then several people would invent them at the exact same time. As Moore saw it, the idea had been discovered in a shared area of idea space, and several wanderers stumbled upon it shortly afterwards. Moore then took it one stage further, and it is at this stage that the model becomes controversial. When biological things are in the physical world evolve to a certain level of complexity, they become living, conscious, self-determined individuals. Could the same be true of ideas in the non-physical world? Could sufficiently complex ideas evolve into a form of life and wander idea space as they saw fit? If this was the case, it would explain the stories of ghosts, aliens, fairies, angels, elves, giant invisible rabbit spirits, and all other unreal creatures that appear throughout cultures and history. This idea would be a leap of faith for most people, but it was the leap Moore took. Moore has said that he and his friend conjured up a demon in his living room around this time and had a long conversation with it. First-hand experience such as this, no doubt, would make the leap much easier to make. Carl Jung had also made a similar leap, although his terminology was different. In 1913, he had troubled by a recurring dream that was both sinister and disturbing. He dreamed of a terrible flood that covered all of the northern and low-lying lands between the North Sea and the Alps. In this flood, which stretched from England to Russia, he saw yellow waves, swimming rubble, and the death of countless thousands. When the dream reoccurred, it was accompanied by a voice which said, "Look at it. It is completely real, and it will come to pass. You cannot doubt this." When the First World War followed, and the yellow mustard gas started rolling over Europe, Jung had no choice but to see his dream vision as a premonition. For a scientist, this was deeply problematic. It challenged him to come up with a theory or an explanation as to how a major event in world history could have represented in his mind before it actually happened. This trail of thought would lead to decades later to his theories on the causal connecting principle of synchronicity. For our purposes, we should make note that such an occurrence fits Moore's model of mental phenomena. The contents of Moore's ideas exist outside the physical world. Relationship to time. Events that are about to happen could well be discovered in this unmaterial realm by deep wanderers such as Jung. Although these events have yet to occur in the physical world, the idea of them may be found forming, like an early warning alarm in that strange mental landscape that Moore calls idea space and Jung called the collective unconscious.